Hi, everyone. As you heard, I'm Evan Siegel. I'm the VP of Financial Services AI at eGain. Why am I qualified to have this role? Well, prior to eGain, I was at Wells Fargo, which is a mega bank in the US, and I loved that job. Why did I love it? It was the scale of impact. Wells Fargo, I was on the leadership team of the contact center, and I worked sort of with all the channels. Wells Fargo is a giant organization. We have 70 million customers, 270,000 team members. In the contact center, we had 100 million calls per year and 10,000 agents. Like, talk about impact. My job was part of my job was to run special initiatives, things like how to improve handle time, how to improve first contact resolution. First thing I figured out was that every second of handle time was $1 million. Okay? But it was a Sisyphean task, and one fraught with failure, to actually make the improvements. We would do things like training and QA and all these sort of weak levers. And the reason even though I love that job, the reason I left and I joined eGain is once I saw the technology that eGain had, I'm like, this is the better way. I'm beating my head against a wall. And so I jumped and joined eGain. And what I'm going to talk to you about today is a framework. Let's call it the knowledge management continuum. So what you've been seeing today, primarily from Ashu and from our clients, is primarily in that solve space, right? It is things like frequently answered questions, break fix, how do I get these issues resolved? And that's important stuff, right? That's where your customer service agents and your digital channel really help the customers. But there's more to knowledge management. Knowledge management can help your business in more ways. So the next step in the continuum is guide. And this is where you do really sort of that needs-based selling to really help your customers buy the products. Because customers don't buy products, they buy solutions. What's the old adage? Black & Decker sells holes, not drills. Well, that's the same with your customers. So let me ask you, how many of your company's CEOs have revenue growth, increasing sales as one of your top 3 priorities? Your hands, show of hands. I'll give you a piece of unsolicited advice. If your CEO doesn't have that as one of the top 3 priorities, I would look for a new job. It's not a good company to be with. And so knowledge management can really drive this type of selling. Let me give you an example of what we tried at Wells Fargo and why knowledge management didn't work. So at Wells Fargo, we had a needs-based framework that the branch bankers are supposed to go through. It was 32 questions, starting with what's your financial goal? And pretty much every financial institution in the world goes with that. And a lot of the mission statements are around, we help you achieve your financial goals. It was an abysmal failure. Why? It's super hard to have in your head as a banker a framework of 32 questions where you know, okay, once I know the answer to this question, here's the next question to ask, the next best question. Here's the next best question. Oh, after I've gotten the answer to 6 or 7 questions, here's the next best financial step. Let me give you advice. Or here's the next best product. No one did it well. So in reality, what it looked like was, what's your financial goal? Regardless of what they said, here's a credit card, right? They would product flog. Okay? Knowledge management can solve that, and I will show you an example of what that looks like both in banking, something I know. My wife says you can take Evan out of the bank, but you can't take the banker out of Evan, and in other industries. Okay? And then the next step on the continuum is coach. And this is where you're really defining your brand, and you're helping your customers achieve their goals. These are things that are usually multi-step journeys where they have to change their behavior. Again, knowledge management can do that. Preloaded advice and guidance where you're working with your customers over time with a bot and you're changing their behavior. I'll give you examples with that. But I'm also going to start with, you've seen innovations in the solve space from Ashu and from our clients. I'm going to start with one more, and it's an exciting announcement that we're making here today. So there is a leading brand, a leading customer service brand called J.D. Power. Big in the US, it's in Europe, but it's very large in the US. They've been in business for decades. They started off by mailing surveys to customers, and there's famous stories. J.D. Power is actually the man that started the business, and his kids would be taping dollar bills to these surveys to take advantage of the behavioral science piece, if you get something, you feel obligated to give back, so people would fill out the surveys. So fast forward today, they have surveys in almost every industry. They survey tens of thousands of customers, and then they sell that survey data back to the industry leaders, to any company, in the industry, and they tell you where your brand ranks among the others based on tens of thousands of customer surveys, and they tell you why your brand may be lagging. They've evolved that to also include practices that will actually move the needle on customer service. They have a consulting business. And so they have decided to partner with eGain because, like my experience at Wells Fargo, the consulting levers that they had to implement these best practices that they would actually see would move loyalty and customer satisfaction in the numbers were weak levers like QA and training. How do we know training's a weak lever? 30 days after someone goes through a training session, they only remember 2% of what they learned in that session. So an incredibly weak lever. So they partner with us. It's one of their first technology innovations and partnerships. And it basically takes advantage of eGain's process guidance. And so they've got dozens of best practices, and we are able to bake those into our process guidance. So you no longer need to train the folks on it. It'll just be given to them, fed to them, at the moment that they need it. And these process best practices include everything from call opening, call closure, how you transfer people. It's a broad range of best practices. So let me give you an example of what one looks like. Remember, you can't take the bank out of Evan, so of course it's going to be a banking example. So one of the top issues, one of the top calls that bankers get are fee reversals. I don't know what it's like here in Europe, but basically if you sleep in late, your bank will charge you a fee in the US, always charging you fees. So therefore, we get a lot of calls about fee reversal. The best practice that J.D. Power has is once you resolve an issue for a customer, tell them when they'll see it in their account and send them a written confirmation of that in the channel and form that they prefer. That's the best practice, okay? So what you see here in eGain's process guidance is the statement of when this customer will see their fee reversal, how many business days it'll show up, and then the choice of how would you like this confirmation, via email or SMS. So again, it's just built into the flow. And what they've seen when you do these types of steps, you get dramatic improvements in CSAT and customer experience and loyalty. Okay, so now let's move to the next step. We're going through that continuum, and you got the little tracker in the upper corner there. So now we're going into the guide step, which again, remember, this is all about sales. So I told you what happens at Wells Fargo. Let me tell you what happened when I walked into a bank here in the UK. So I walked in and said, hey, I recently applied with you all. This was a mystery shop. And I was turned down for my mortgage. What can I do so that next time I apply, I'm approved? And to say that the banker that I talked to was a deer in the headlights was being generous. He gave me a blank stare of fear. After a few uncomfortable moments, he then, I'm bad with the British accent, but I'll do my best. He very politely said, oh, sir, we don't do that here. So what a terrible customer experience, right? In the US, with the banking executives that I'm talking to, it's those young double-income couples struggling and trying, high income, future affluent, trying to buy a home. The holy grail, as the Bank of America executive is on the record in the banking industry and in the press talking about, is to be able to advise people as they're on their journey to achieving financial goals. That's the holy grail of banking. Because if you help that young, high-income couple realize the dream of home ownership, you've got that customer for life. So what does it look like in the eGain model? This is the same knowledge management solution. This is not a different product. It's just a different use case. So what you see here in this screenshot on the left-hand side are those needs assessment questions. What's the best question to ask? Of course, via APIs, we can integrate with a CRM system, so it's a know-me experience. So you're not asking questions that banks should already know. What's your balance? What products do you have with us? What's your financial goal? You start to go through those questions, and based on what you know, what's the next best question? In the middle there, that middle panel is guidance. Stuff that this is the banker facing on the left-hand side there with the colorful yellow bubbles. What are things that the banker can say, framework, context, to make that banker look really smart? And then lastly, on the right-hand panel, are either products or next best actions with a little bit of a color coding to know on the fit. So you can start to see as you ask and gain answers to more and more questions. And keep in mind here, sometimes the next best thing for that customer to do is not buy a product. It might be, let's just keep with this banking example, it might be, they're going to apply for a mortgage, get the credit score up, and give them advice and guidance to get that credit score up, so when they get a product, when they get the mortgage, it's the lowest cost mortgage. So that's what you see on the left-hand side is the banker UI. But as we know, you can also do sales and guidance in your digital channels. That same powerful engine can also be used via the chat channel. You can create a virtual banker or a virtual salesperson in your channel having that same conversation. And then, as a leadership team, what you and your managers and leaders can do is start to ask those really great questions, such as, which customer segments, you kind of do the customer strategy and the branch strategy, this channel strategy. Which customers do we want to get into the branch channel, the physical channel, the retail channel? That's an expensive channel, but it's a high-touch experience. Which ones do we want to get in there? We can invite them in because we're going to give advice and guidance. And which do we want to steer to the mass market digital channel because it's a lower cost to serve? It's a super powerful model. And it goes beyond banking. I love to ski. In fact, every spring I have to have a conversation with Ashu and make sure he can keep me from quitting my job and going and becoming a lifty so I can ski all winter. And the example here of advice and guidance applies perfectly well to retail. So in the old days, when I first started buying skis, I won't tell you how long ago it was because it's a frighteningly long time ago, I would just go talk to the ski dude. The ski dude was a cool guy, had been skiing forever. He would ask me 4 or 5 questions, and then he knew what skis to recommend, and I trusted him, and he gave me great recommendations. But, like happens in every business, the digital channel has sort of disrupted things. So this is a page from my favorite skiing website. And remember, I love to ski, and I know a lot about skiing, yet I have no idea what rocker and camber are, nor do I understand how it impacts my skiing experience. So before I buy skis, what I have to do is I spend a day reading all this stuff, reading the reviews. It literally takes me hours, and then I make the decision of which ski I'm going to buy. But remember, we have this process, this guidance that comes with the eGain solution. You can just recreate the ski dude, and that's what you see on the right-hand side there. They can ask you where you ski, how much you want to spend, how old are you, what's your level, and boom, out comes a recommendation of what product is the best fit and why. It's a totally revolutionary experience in the digital retail sales experience, sales model. And again, I can go on in industry examples. Here's one from the high tech, the current model. I recently bought my college-bound daughter a computer. And again, I kind of consider myself relatively educated. I don't know which chip, how much RAM, how much weight to buy. The proper way to do this sale is how are you going to use the computer? How many years do you plan on using it for? How much weight do how are you going to carry it around? How much are you willing to spend? And boom, out comes a recommendation or 2 or 3 products. So hopefully now with these couple of industry examples, you all can see how the existing knowledge capability can fire up and do that really customized selling and guidance to help your brands grow like your CEOs want them to. All right? Let's now move to the third step on the knowledge continuum, which is coaching. So remember, this is where you're trying to change behavior. It's a multi-step journey. So eGain partnered with TransUnion, which is one of the large credit bureaus in the US, and GreenPath, which is a financial counseling nonprofit. It's the leading financial counseling nonprofit to create an AI coach that's focused on financial services. So what this coach does, this CoachBot does, is it has 1,200 preloaded, advice-rich journeys that customers can go through to do foundational things such as building credit, saving more money, paying down debt. We've gotten broad implementation and exciting adoption in this in the financial services industry in the US, again, because all these financial firms have in their mission statements, we're going to help you achieve your financial goals. We're going to help you be financially successful. Yet, when you ask the executives, how are you doing against that mission, to a person, they say, we are not achieving it. We are failing at it. So this is one step combined with the guidance and that sort of next best product, next best action that allows them via technology to get there. So we've not just created an individual coaching solution, we've also created a coaching platform. So now this technology is available to any one of you to kind of use in your own use case. And it's producing compelling results. So we actually have in there, let's say you're going down the credit building journey. We ask at the beginning of the journey, how stressed are you about your credit score? And they rate the user is rated on a scale of 1 to 5. Then after being coached in one of these 1,200 advice-rich journeys, we ask them again, how do you feel now? We see a 35% reduction in stress, which is incredible if you think about it. This is via a bot. Okay? We also have one journey, this is just a mind-blowing statistic. We also have one journey where people pull their credit report. It's a little-known fact, but in the US, 1 in 5 credit reports has an error in it. The number one way you can improve your credit is get that error fixed. And what we see is that 50% of the users that go down that path actually find an error, and then the coach tells them how to dispute that error. I mean, that's incredible value add, and the cost per user to do this is pennies per user. We do it on a fixed price model based on the customer base of the bank or credit union. So I'll leave you with some thoughts about how you can extend this coaching model to your business. So for insurance, we've actually are in discussions with some insurance companies about like risk prevention, right? There are multiple things you can do to reduce your risk profile. It's not a one and done experience. There are things you can do over time to reduce your risk profile. You have a lower profile, you're a better customer, you'll get better pricing, so that's a coaching example. The health space is kind of infinite. If you're an insurance company, a health provider, you can see all the potential use cases there where a coach can go through these sort of complex multi-step journeys and really help the brand, help their customers have a better health profile and a better experience. My son works for a digital recruiting company, so I'm close to this space. It's another great use case, right? Think about all the steps you go through to try to find a new job. You've got to create a resume. You've got to write cover letters. You've got to identify companies that are in your target suite. You've got to reach out to them. You've got to interview. Every one of those steps can be coached, and you need that sort of ongoing environment, including one of the features of the coach I didn't mention is it has nudges. So once you've gotten advice, you'll get an SMS message to make sure you're sort of doing that. There's gamification to it, quizzes, all these kind of things that make it a much more engaging experience. And so I'll leave you with my favorite use case of the coach. So a friend of mine recently got divorced and entered the dating scene, and he was telling me all about the dating apps. He was telling me about how all the steps you have to go through. You have to create a profile picture, you have to create a profile setup, you have to pick which dating app you want to do. So the minute he was telling me this, a light bulb went out to me. The Love Coach. So for one of you, if any of you are in the dating app business, I would love to partner with you to create the Love Coach.